Hello everyone. Welcome to the Life Sketches channel. My name is Emma. I am a 42-year-old widow who has been single for 17 years and is still known as a very attractive woman for her age. Today, I am going to tell you a true story about the emotional conflict I had with my son and how the bonds between a mother and son can change in an instant. It had snowed overnight and our small town of Gatlinburg was covered in a blanket of white. I was standing in front of the window with a hot cup of coffee in my hand, watching the streets through the slightly fogged glass. Everything was quiet, as if the world had stopped breathing. The snow covered every corner of the roads and roofs, creating a peacefulness, as if time had stopped. This kind of silence had also settled over parts of my life. My ex-husband Jack left 17 years ago, leaving only silence behind. My son Ethan was only 5 years old at the time. As I closed the door behind Jack that day, I said to myself, there is a mother and a son in this house now. We don't need anyone else. As he grew up, I had to be both his mother and the branch he clung to in life. To this day, I still don't know how I did it, but I do know that Ethan's bright smile and vibrant energy always carried me forward. Ethan is now a young man of 22, a passionate photographer. Even as Ethan chased his dreams, he never lost sight of the beauty of this small town. His perspective has always fascinated me. Even in an ordinary sunset, he could see details that were hard to notice and turn them into a story. Maybe his love for photography was a way of filling the gaps in our lives. After Jack's departure, Ethan became not only my son, but also my inspiration. When I looked out the window that morning, I felt a strange peace, as if the whiteness of the snow was covering all the dark memories of the past. It was as if something had changed inside me. The pain of Jack's departure was gone. A calmness of acceptance had taken its place. But still, sometimes when I sat alone at night, I couldn't help thinking, what would our life have been like if Jack had stayed? These thoughts no longer bothered me, but the disappointments of the past remained with me like a slight shadow. Just as I was lost in these thoughts, footsteps on the stairs pulled me back to the real world. Ethan was walking towards the kitchen with his camera on his shoulder. He had a warm smile on his face as always. He was the kind of person who could warm up that cold winter morning with his smile alone. "Good morning, Mom," he said energetically. He came up to me and kissed me on the cheek. His light beard touched my skin, a small but clear sign that he had grown up. I couldn't help but feel proud of him. Once he was just a little boy, now he was an adult, chasing his own dreams. "Good morning, sweetie," I replied, with a smile on my face. "Why are you up so early?" "I'm going to the lake," she said, her voice full of excitement. "The light is amazing after the overnight snow. If I don't take pictures now, I'll miss this moment." Going to the lake. Ethan did it often. It was his inspiration, a kind of escape. Normally, I didn't get involved in his trips, but that morning, I don't know why, I felt the urge to join him. "Should I go with you?" I asked, surprised at the words that came out of my mouth. Ethan's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? That would be great, Mom. I miss doing something with you." Slowly, I grabbed my coat, wrapped my scarf around me, and left the house with Ethan. The cold air was biting our cheeks, but I felt a strange warmth inside. This walk felt not only like a bond between a mother and son, but also like a kind of confrontation with the past. When we reached the lake, the view was mesmerizing. The snow had covered the water's edge, and the branches of the bare trees with a thin blanket. The surface of the lake, like a mirror frozen by the cold, reflected the surrounding bare trees and the clear blue sky. Everything was silent and perfect, as if a painter had taken care of his painting down to the smallest detail. Ethan wasted no time and took out his camera, his eyes scanned with the passion and patience of an artist. In that moment, he seemed to me not only a photographer, but also a dreamer. He reminded me of Jack, but not with the pain of Jack's wounds, but as a sweet but bitter memory of the life we once imagined. Ethan turned to me from behind the camera and asked, "Mom, this really is an amazing place, isn't it?" The excitement and happiness in his eyes broke through my silent thoughts. "Yes," I said with a slight smile. "It has always been peaceful here. Maybe that's why you like it so much." He continued taking photos in silence for a while. There was mastery in every movement, a story in every frame. As I watched him, I felt the shadows of the past begin to fall over me. The fact that Jack was not with us, that he never would be. But in that moment, More than making me sad, these thoughts reminded me that there are different ways to live. "Mom," Ethan said after a while, putting down the camera and turning to me, "do you remember Dad?" His question caught me off guard. We didn't like to talk about Jack. There was an unwritten silence between us on the subject, but there was curiosity in Ethan's eyes, and perhaps a search for understanding. I answered with a deep breath. "Of course I remember. It's impossible to forget him. But Ethan, your father is just a memory now, a part of the past." Ethan took a step on the snow and approached me. There was a slight sadness in his eyes, but it was accepting, not hurtful. "Do you miss him?" he asked, his voice soft and low. I thought for a while. "Sometimes, but not in the way you think. I miss the good memories we had with him, the life we dreamed of but never realized. But know that his leaving gave me more time to spend with you. I never regret that." Ethan was silent for a moment. Then he raised his eyes to me and said with a slight smile, "You know, Mom, even if Dad is gone, you will always be the most important person in my life. You are literally the center of my life." These words sent a wave of warmth through me. Ethan had touched a place in my heart. I hugged him tightly, forgetting the cold winter weather. "I'm proud of you too, Ethan. Always," I said, my eyes filled with tears. As the sky began to turn bright blue, Ethan picked up the camera again. But this time when I looked at him, I saw more than a son. I saw a young man fulfilling his own dreams. Jack's shadow was no longer over me. It had been replaced by the pride and happiness Ethan gave me. On the way home, it was still freezing, but there was a quiet warmth between us as we walked through the snow. Ethan would often stop and take photos from different angles, sometimes turning to me and explaining the content of the frames. His passion made me forget about the cold weather. "Mom, I realized something," he said suddenly, hanging the camera around his neck. "What did you realize, Ethan?" I asked, looking at him as he trudged through the snow. "I haven't taken my best picture yet because I've always had my best model with me," he said, with that mischievous smile on his face. His voice had taken on a thoughtful tone. I tilted my head curiously, waiting for an explanation. He stopped where he was, lifted the camera, and pointed it directly at me. I laughed, wiping the snow from my coat. "You mean me?" "I don't think so. I'm not photogenic." He shook his head seriously. "You're wrong, Mom. Photography is about capturing the essence of a person, your perfect body, the most beautiful face I've ever seen, and your eyes tell a story. I need to see them in the frame." His words made my cheeks flush, but it wasn't from the cold. "You're good at wordplay. You know that, don't you?" I said, trying to sound casual. He winked and laughed lightly. "Part of the charm," he teased. Our banter continued throughout the walk. By the time we got home, my face ached from Ethan's light humor and the inside jokes between us. But it was the best kind of pain. "I can't wait to show you these," he said as he walked through the door, his boots clicking on the wooden floor. "I think you'll love it." "Only if I get to approve the arrangements," I teased, taking off my scarf and hanging it by the door. "Don't be surprised if they turn out better than you expected," he called as he gave me a playful look and headed upstairs. I laughed to myself, still warm from that moment. Ethan didn't come downstairs for the rest of the day, typical of his behavior when immersed in his creative world. Occasional music and the faint clicking of his camera came from his room. Whatever he was working on, he was giving it his full attention. The next morning, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee woke me from my sleep. I stretched, curled up under the duvet, struggling to get out of bed in the cold January air. As I contemplated staying in the warmth of the duvet a little longer, the door opened slightly. Ethan was standing there with a tray, a steaming cup of coffee, a cake with a candle on it, and some flowers in a small vase. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said in a soft voice, full of tenderness. "Ethan," I whispered, my heart swelling with love. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Of course I did," he replied as he placed the tray on my knees. "You deserve it." I blew out the candles and took a sip of my coffee as he sat next to me, watching me. The coffee was prepared just the way I wanted it. This thoughtful gesture made me feel special, even though the day had not yet begun. The hours passed quickly with moments of calm and shared smiles. By evening, the house was as peaceful as ever. I curled up on the sofa and started reading a book, enjoying the calm. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Ethan came into the living room with a black box. His expression was neutral, but his eyes shone with excitement. "Mom," he said, standing in front of me. "I have one last surprise for your birthday." I put my book aside and smiled at him. "You've already done enough today, Ethan. What's this?" "Open it and see," he said in a mocking tone. Curious, I opened the box. Inside was a delicately textured red satin robe and a matching set of elegant underwear. I was briefly speechless at the softness under my fingers. "Ethan," I said, my voice shaking a little, "this is really beautiful." "There's more," he added, his smile widening. "Put this on and come upstairs. Trust me." I didn't know what to do with her request. The idea of appearing in front of my child in this outfit was strange, but the excitement on her face was contagious. Gathering my courage, I nodded and took the box and went to my room. I put on the dressing gown and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked extremely sexy. I hadn't seen myself in the mirror like this in a long time. With a slight hesitation, with mixed feelings, I went upstairs. When I opened the door, I was stunned by what I saw. The room was bathed in a soft red light. Thin fabrics wrapped around lamps softened the light. In the center of the room rose a silver dance pole. Smoke rose gently from a machine in the corner, creating a slight fog in the room. On a nearby table was a red leather cat mask. Ethan turned to me, camera in hand. "You look great," he said sincerely. Handing me the mask, he said, "Put this on. The pictures will be better," he added. After a brief hesitation, his reassuring smile was enough to put me at ease. "This is just for fun," he said in a soft voice. "You have always done so much for others. Now, let me do something for you." Taking a deep breath, I put on the mask and stepped under the red light. The rhythm of the music in the room was energetic and uplifting. Although I felt a little awkward at first, Ethan's compliments and laughter soon put me at ease. He was carefully guiding me, capturing fun and empowering shots. "You have a natural talent," he said, lowering the camera briefly. "You don't realize how incredible you are. You have the perfect skin, the perfect body. You're like a Playboy model right now." The sincerity of his words caught me off guard. As I peered through the mask, I felt that the moment was more than just an ordinary birthday. It wasn't about taking pictures or a celebration. It was about a deeper connection. As the night progressed, I rediscovered my confidence with the alcohol, and the combination of the music and the red light made me feel alive again. Ethan had a look of admiration on his face as he watched me behind the camera. He wasn't looking at me like my son. He was looking at me in a very different way. Finally, Ethan raised the camera again and asked with a smile, "Can I get one last shot? A simple pose by the pole?" After a brief hesitation, and with his encouraging look, I agreed. I leaned slightly against the pole, the robe hanging loosely from my shoulders. The light from the flash came alive in my eyes to make this moment unforgettable. "Excellent," he said, lowering the camera. "You have a natural talent." I nodded, laughing. "I think you're just a very good photographer." "Maybe," he said softly, leaning closer. "But I think you give me too much credit. You've always been extraordinary, Mom. I'm just lucky enough to see it." His words silenced me. Beyond the banter, this moment was profound. The bond between us was reshaping, reaching a dimension we hadn't realized before. As the night slowly drew to a close, we drank a late glass of wine in the kitchen and laughed and talked about the night. In that moment, everything felt natural and easy, as if the night had brought us closer in a way we had never imagined. The next day, there was a silence in the house. Ethan, as usual, had woken up early but hadn't left his room. Normally, he was at the breakfast table or in front of the camera, but today, everything was different. My curiosity was growing because it was rare for him to keep to himself like this. I walked up the stairs, and when I got to his door, I took a deep breath and knocked lightly. "Ethan?" I called out. There were strange murmurs and shifting voices and Ethan's moans coming from the room. A faint light was shining into the room, and Ethan was staring at the computer screen. When I walked into the room, there were pictures of me from last night on the computer, and Ethan was looking at them, making himself happy. And I suddenly felt very awkward, but I pretended not to see them, not to embarrass him, and I said a little hello and poked my head into the room and asked him what he was doing, and he just said, "I was just organizing the pictures." And he suddenly got angry. He focused his face on the screen, hummed a melody between his lips, and quickly pulled himself together. "Mom," she said, turning and smiling when she noticed me. "Come here. There's something I want to show you." I sat down next to her and looked at the screen, trying to shake off the tension of the moment and what I had just seen. There were so many mixed feelings inside me. The photos in front of me perfectly captured the magic of yesterday's moments. Under the red light, the combination of smoke and light created a work of art. Each frame was not just a photograph, it told a story. "These are incredible," I said, struggling for words. "Ethan, you've done a really amazing job." He smiled back, the twinkle in his eyes even more pronounced. "I think it's for the best," he said, enlarging a photo on the screen. I was standing next to the pole, the robe hanging slightly off my shoulders, the light reflecting off Ethan's underwear Ethan had bought, making me look like a work of art. I looked really beautiful. I had a slight smile on my face as I looked at this photo, but what was reflected in it was deeper, a confidence, a peace, a beauty. "This is my favorite," he added. "There's something about it that makes you feel how special that moment was for you." I looked at the photo and thought he was right. It wasn't just an image, it captured the emotion of the moment. "Ethan," I said, turning to him, "you need to develop this talent. You have something to show the world." He nodded, turning his eyes back to the screen. "I think so too," he said quietly. "But it means more to me that I was able to do it with you. It means a lot to me that I was able to take your photos with that perfection." I squeezed his hand lightly, feeling the bond between us grow stronger in that moment. That bond was more than a mother-son bond. Ethan suddenly turned and said, "Mom. Mom, you are actually much more than just mom for me." And he got closer and reduced the distance between us to 0 and took a kiss from my lips. What was going on? Was this moment real? Yes. My son kissed my lips, and this excited me very much. Then I quietly said, "Yes, I think you're the same for me," and there we were in Ethan's room together. There was something wrong. It wasn't acceptable. But once it happened, I don't know what to do from now on. I don't know how to behave. When I see him, I feel like I'm looking for a hole in the house. But I'm drawn to him with all my being. Ethan was not only a talented photographer, but also a human being who found the most beautiful ways to express his deep feelings and love. This story is not just mine and Ethan's story. We all have moments in our lives when we form strong bonds and have to face the past. Sometimes these bonds become stronger again. Sometimes they take on new meaning. I submitted my story in this lostness to the Life Sketches channel, and I am waiting for comments and suggestions that will help me in this direction. If this story made you feel something, please don't forget to like this video. I would love to hear your story in the comments below. What is the most meaningful connection in your life? Has a person or a memory touched you deeply? What you share may inspire someone else. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to continue stories like this and take this journey with us.